One of the most memory-hold stories of 2023 was that the CEOs of all of these companies, Sam Altman, Demis Hassabis, Dario Amodei, signed this statement saying, hey, this could cause human extinction. Let's be careful. They said it. It's kind of like if Oppenheimer and Einstein had written a letter warning that nuclear weapons could kill people, and then everybody just sort of forgot about it.
Few people understand artificial intelligence and machine learning as well as MIT physics professor Max Tegmark. He's the author of Life 3.0, Being Human in the Age of Artificial Intelligence, and founder of the Future of Life Institute.
The painful truth that's really beginning to sink in is that we're much closer to figuring out how to build this stuff than we are to figuring out how to control it.
How close are we to science fiction type scenarios where an uncontrollable AI can wreak major havoc on humanity? And how do we prevent that?
Do you know that AI is currently the only industry in the US that makes powerful stuff that has less regulation than sandwiches?
This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Yanya Kellick. Max Tegmark, such a pleasure to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Thank you.
We've been seeing an incredible growth in AI, especially through these chatbots. That's what all the kind of fuss is about, maybe some also in robotic and some other areas, some very interesting applications. But I have this sense, I have this intuition that what's really happening is much, much greater than that at a level that perhaps I can't even grasp at this point. So why don't you tell me what's really going on here?
So it is indeed hard to see the forest for all the trees because there's so much buzz in AI every week, every day. There's some new thing. So if we zoom out and actually look at the forest, we humans have spent a lot of time over the millennia wondering about what we are, how our bodies work, and etc. And hundreds of years ago, we figured out more about muscles and built machines that were stronger and faster. And more recently, there was a quest to try to understand how our brains process information and accomplish tasks. The name artificial intelligence is coined in the 50s. People started making some progress. Since then, it's mostly been chronically overhyped. Mm-hmm. The people who started working on this said they were going to do a summer workshop in Dartmouth and kind of figure it out. It didn't happen. But for the last 4 years, it's switched to being underhyped, where progress has actually been much faster than people expected. So to give you an example, I've been doing AI research at MIT as a professor there for many years, and as recently as 6 years ago, almost all my colleagues thought that building a machine that could master language and knowledge, kind of at the level of ChatGPT 4, was decades away. Maybe it would happen in 2050. And they were obviously all wrong. It's already happened. And since then, AI has gone from kind of high school level to kind of college level to PhD level to professor level and beyond in some areas, which leads us close to the point which the godfather of the whole field, Alan Turing, talked about in 1951. He said, look, folks, if you ever make machines that are just better, can outthink us in every way, they're going to take control. That's the default outcome. But he said, chill out. It's far away. Don't worry. I'll give you a test, though, a canary in the coal mine, when you need to pay attention. It's called the Turing test. That's when machines can master language and knowledge, and which is what's now happened with ChatGPT 4 and so on. And so basically, after a lot of hype and failed promises, we're now at the point where we're very close to probably the most important fork in the road in human history, where we have to ask ourselves, are we going to somehow build inspiring tools that help us do everything better and cure diseases and make us prosperous and strong? Or are we going to just sort of throw away the keys to the planet by building some alien, amoral machine species that just sort of replaces us? Because if you ask yourself, why is it, that when you go down to the zoo here in Washington, it's the tigers that are in the cages, not the humans? Why is that? Is it because we are stronger than the tigers or have sharper teeth? Of course not. It's because we're smarter, right? And it's kind of natural that the smarter species will dominate the planet. And that was the basic point Turing made, and it still stands. People who don't see this, I think, make the mistake of thinking of AI as just another technology like the steam engine or the internet, whereas Turing himself was clearly thinking about it as a new species. That might sound very weird, because why your laptop isn't a species, of course, but if you think of a species as something that can make copies of itself and have its own goals and do things, we're not there now with AI. But if you imagine in a not distant future that we have robots that can just outthink us in every way and outplan us and out-strategize us. Of course, they can also build robot factories and build new robots. They can build better robots. They can build still better robots, etc., and then gradually get more and more advanced than us. That checks every box of being a new species. And at that point, before that point, we have to ask ourselves, is that really what we want to do? We have this incredible gift. We're placed here as stewards of this earth, with an ability to use technology for all sorts of wonderful stuff. And I love tech as much as anyone. But don't we want to aim for something more ambitious than just replacing ourselves?
One of the things that shocks me is that there are actually, in the literature of some of these AI companies, some of them appear to be wanting to create artificial general intelligence. So I'm going to get you to tell me what that is for the benefit of our audience. And also, that is astonishing and almost like a kind of, to me, like some sort of odd quasi-religious commitment, right? Which scares the living daylights out of me. So please comment. Yeah.
So first of all, artificial intelligence is just non-biological intelligence. So what's artificial general intelligence then? Well, the AI we have so far is still pretty stupid in many ways. In many cases, it's quite narrow also, that it can do some things and not others. For example, most AI systems today are very passive. What you have there in your iPad is it can answer questions, but it's not out doing anything in the world. It's not making plans for what it's going to do next year, right? Artificial general intelligence is defined simply as AI that can do everything we can do, basically, as well as we can, or better. And some of these companies have been put on their website that their goal is therefore to basically automate all economically valuable work. People who say there'll always be jobs that humans can do better than machines are simply predicting that there will never be AGI, artificial general intelligence. And I think it's increasingly obvious to people who work in the field that it's absolutely possible. If we get to there, where machines can do all our jobs, that also includes doing the job of making better AI. You're a very smart guy, but your brain is limited by the size of your mom's birth canal, right? And moreover, when your brain runs on 20 watts of electricity, like a light bulb, and you can easily put millions of watts into your computer. My laptop runs about 1 billion times faster than my brain also. So once machines start improving themselves, they can get as much smarter than us, I think is obvious, as we are smarter than snails. And if you had the idea that somehow snails were going to control us, or they were going to build us and then control us, you should laugh at this, because it's pretty obviously a tall order. So what I described now is what's known as superintelligence, which is what probably will come not long after artificial general intelligence. And this is exactly what Alan Turing warned about. Can I inject some optimism in this? Because just feeling a little gloomy in the direction we're going here. We still have not actually had a nuclear war between the superpowers, because there was a political will not to have one. So we didn't have one, even though there were some close calls. And it's absolutely not a foregone conclusion either that we're just going to hand over the keys to our future to some stupid alien machines, because frankly, almost nobody wants it. There are actually a very small number of tech people who have actually gone on YouTube and places like that and said that they want humanity to be replaced by machines because they're smarter somehow and that's better. I think of that as digital eugenics.
Max, one quick sec. We're going to take a break, and folks, we'll be right back. And we're back with Max Tegmark, MIT professor doing research in AI. It's deeply nihilistic thought. Like, I can't even imagine what these people are actually thinking. Like, it's insane. Isn't it by definition, maybe? I don't know. Yeah.
I think they're sort of salivating over some sort of digital master race. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not the one who can get into their minds exactly. I believe in free speech. I believe they should have the right to want what they want. But I'm on Team Human. I'm not on their team. I want our children to have the same rights to a long and meaningful life that we have. And frankly, I think you're on my side on this.
I'm deeply on your side, but my concern, I mean, we're talking about this, right, is that I think the people who are actually working on this are above average, more predisposed to the view that you described, and that's the concern, right?
That's why.
And the other part is that with the nuclear bomb, there's this mass physical devastation that happens when you launch one. This is somehow different. This is ethereal, and the mass physical devastation doesn't happen until you've already sort of, ChatGPT doesn't feel like it's an existential risk the way that a proto-nuclear bomb does.
The biggest difference of all is we have all seen videos of nuclear explosions, and nobody has seen a video or anything about AGI or superintelligence because it's in the future. So the uphill battle you and I have here, if we want to make other people pay attention to this, is imagine we were warning about a nuclear winter in 1942. People would be like, what are you even talking about? And if we do get there, there can be plenty of devastation. I mean, the most likely outcome is that it just causes human extinction. And we talked about suppression of and memory holding of inconvenient truths. One of the most memory-hold stories of 2023 was that the CEOs of all of these companies, Sam Altman, Demis Hassabis, Dario Amodei, signed this statement saying, hey, this could cause human extinction. Let's be careful. They said it. It's kind of like if Oppenheimer and Einstein had written a letter warning that nuclear weapons could kill people, and then everybody just sort of forgot about it. So there could be devastation, but it feels so abstract now because it's not today's AI we're afraid of. Yeah, today's AI can, of course, brainwash people, manipulate people, cause power concentration, do censorship. But it's not today's AI that could simply we could lose control over. It's the AI that we'll get in the future if we let it happen. The huge shift that's happened after we passed the Turing test, though, is that this future is no longer decades away, right? Dario Amodei, who leads Anthropic, one of the top American companies, predicts that it'll happen by 2027, 2 years from now, AGI will have what he calls a country of geniuses in a data center, where these geniuses in the data center, these AIs, are better than Nobel laureates in physics and chemistry and math at their various tasks. And so most likely we'll get to the point where this could happen during Trump's presidency. Trump is the AI president. It's going to be what he does during his watch, which determines how this goes. And I promised you some optimism. So here's the optimism. This dystopian future, almost nobody wants it except for some fringe nerds. And that's the main, there have been a lot of polls in the US. The vast majority of Americans absolutely don't want this future. And there's not even any partisan divide on that. Moreover, I think what's beginning to happen is people in the NatSec community are beginning to also realize that this is a national security threat. If you're working in the US NatSec community and your job is to keep tabs on other countries that could pose a NatSec threat, and then you hear some guy talking about a country of geniuses in a data center, you'll think, well, maybe I should put his country on my list to pay attention to also. Do I really want some San Francisco-based nerd who's had too much Red Bull to drink, to make decisions about something that could overthrow the US government? The painful truth that's really beginning to sink in is that we're much closer to figuring out how to build this stuff than we are to figuring out how to control it. But that's also the good news, because nobody in the NatSec community wants us to build something uncontrollable. Even if you start talking about weapons, you want controllable weapons. We don't want uncontrollable weapons. And it's not, this is the way the NatSec community will think in every country. You know, to take China, for example, I'm pretty sure Xi Jinping would like to not lose his control. So if some Chinese tech company could overthrow him, what do you think he's going to do about that tech company?
One of the things that drives innovation is technological competition. I think that's obvious, right? I think it's a major driver. Like you're trying to kind of get ahead of the other, right? And this is driving, I'm sure, this whole chatbot mass evolution, quick evolution that's happening right now. The difference is that the moment you let the genie out of the bottle, the moment that thing can start building itself, and I mean, I don't know at what point we're rushing right now. We're in an arms race. We have, you mentioned communist China, Xi Jinping, a completely amoral governing regime. There's no moral boundary to be crossed. You're right. The moral boundary is control. Absolutely, the Chinese Communist Party wants to not relinquish an iota of control. That's true. However, any technology that's outlawed or problematic, CRISPR babies would be a great example. Though technically the guy didn't go to jail for that, but all that stuff is happening. Okay, why? Because there is no moral boundary, and there's a arms race, technological arms race in all these areas. So we can get ahead. And all these American companies have built AI centers, notably Microsoft and so forth. So that all that information has been siphoned and used, and I'm convinced that the NatSec people or the military people are going to be like, hey, we got to keep pushing the envelope here, because otherwise those other guys are going to be ahead. And then the genie comes out of the bottle, and now it's doing its own thing. How does that not happen?
Yeah, those are really profound questions.
Yeah.
So the key thing is this envelope that you talk about, to think about what is the edge of this envelope actually. It's not so simple that AI is just either you have less of it or you have more of it. Think of there's a space of different kinds of AI systems with different properties. For example, you have a lot of intelligence in your iPad there, but it's narrow intelligence, not very general, and it's, for example, it can't drive, and it doesn't have agency. It doesn't have goals that it's out pursuing with a robotic body in the world.
At least I hope.
Yeah, and the thing that we clearly don't know how to control is actually only when you combine three separate capabilities. When you have not just very strong domain intelligence at what you're good at, like AlphaFold for curing cancer or whatever, and very strong generality, so it knows how to manipulate people and produce new pandemics or whatever, and also agency, autonomy. So it's only when you put those three together that we don't know how to control it. It's also only when you put those three all together that it can do all the human jobs and cause a lot of negative upheavals in maybe in our society. But if you have only one or two of those traits, it's perfectly possible to both control it and also make sure that it just complements people rather than replaces them. You have autonomy and generality in your intelligence, etc. So you're not going to be replaced by something which lacks one of those. So if you think of the Venn diagram, I'm being a nerd now, there's like a donut shape where you just pick one or two of those traits, but not all three. That lets you kind of have the cake and eat it. And I think that's where we're going to end up in the donut, so to speak, because if you want to make a lot of money on AI, suppose you want to build the world's best self-driving car that can drive better than any human driver. We don't have it now. What do you need from this? Yes, of course, you need autonomy, and you need domain intelligence. It's better be really good at driving. But do you really need it to know how to make bioweapons? Do you need to have so much generality in it that your car can persuade you to vote for your least favorite politician? You probably wouldn't even want that. You just, hey, car, can you just stick to driving, please? And similarly, if you want to cure cancer, there's no reason to teach a cancer-curing AI how to manipulate people or how to drive cars. So I think what we're going to this is my optimism. Where the race is going to shift is towards towards tool AI, the kind of AI here in the donut where we know how to control it. To me, a tool is what I can control. I like to drive a powerful car, not an uncontrollable car, right? Similarly, what military commander in any country is going to want an uncontrollable drone swarm? I think they would prefer the controllable kind, right?
Yes.
So they're not going to put all this extra AGI stuff in it so it can persuade the commander of something else. And we will see a competition of who can build the best tools between companies, between countries. And then they'll come up with some basic safety standards just to protect their own people. Like, do you know the AI is currently the only industry in the US that makes powerful stuff that has less regulation than sandwiches? Like if someone has a sandwich shop in San Francisco, right, before they can sell their first sandwich, some health inspector checks out the kitchen. Right?
And a great many other things. Yes, correct.
Yeah. If someone in OpenAI has this crazy, uncontrollable superintelligence and wants to release it tomorrow, they can legally do so. I'm not talking about some sort of horrible innovation-stifling red tape, of which there has been much, of course. I'm talking about some very basic stuff. I think it would even benefit the AI industry itself. The worst thing that could happen to our American competitiveness in AI is that some dudes with hubris just ruin it for everyone else and cause a huge backlash.
This has been an absolutely fascinating conversation. I greatly enjoyed it. Any final thought as we finish?
Just to end on a positive note again, ultimately, technology is not evil. It's also not morally good. I want it to be a tool. I want us to put a lot of thought into how we make sure we use this tool for good things, not for bad things. We have solved that problem successfully with tools like fire. You can use it for very good barbecues or for arson, and we put some regulations in place and so on, so that the use of fire generally is very positive in America, and same for knives and same for so much else. And we can totally do the same thing with AI. And if we do that, we will actually building the most inspiring future you can imagine, where seemingly incurable diseases get cured, where we can have a future where people are healthy and wealthy and prosperous and live incredibly inspiring lives. It's this hope, not the fear, which is really driving me.
Well, Max Tegmark, it's such a pleasure to have had you on.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you all for joining Max Tegmark and me on this episode of American Thought Leaders. I'm your host, Jan Jekielek.